Afternoon, folks. We're back to conclude our discussion on the best dinosaur trilogy question mark in existence.
Would Night at the Museum count as a trilogy because it always has a dinosaur skeleton in it?
Um, that's like saying Meet the Robinsons is a dinosaur movie because it has a T-Rex show up.
Yeah, I know. I'm just stretching hairs to think of other alternatives.
Stretching hairs? Don't you mean splitting hairs?
That too. Like I'm a velociraptor. I don't know what hairs are.
Indeed, you need to get various different kinds of hairs, I think. You need to
Hmm
sample head hair, pubic hair.
Even though my avatar clearly demonstrates that I have some form of a fancy mustache, that's all plastic. I'm afraid to inform you.
Well, yeah, that was about right.
So anyhow,
So, Jurassic. You suggested the kind of having a retrospective. I don't really have many thoughts on this. So, what are like your how do you want to approach this exactly? Since this is your show, um I was kind of content with just leaving out the commentaries, but you seem to want to do this. So, what are your
hmm.
like?
I think it's the Jurassic Park trilogy is quite interesting to discuss, especially because we have the Jurassic World trilogy to kind of compare it to. Um, because a lot of people are of the belief that Jurassic Park: The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 are around like the same ballpark and quality, even though I think our recent commentaries have kind of debunked that.
Yeah, two at least has some enjoyable moments and is mostly kind of okay. It's like an okay. It's an
Hmm
okay movie that you can just kind of like. No, this is annoying and preachy, like most of the other environmental movies, like the Emerald Forest, Fern Gully,
hmm
etc. All are movies that I hate,
Yeah.
um, or at the very least have monumental disdain for.
hmm
Um, Mostly, the Emerald Forest mostly because John Borman is an incompetent hack.
Yeah.
But has
As we've
never
seen
made a good
earlier.
movie. Because none of his
Hmm
movies are good. Like I don't buy that this. I'm amazed that this guy kept getting work, especially after Zardoz. I
hmm
can I can understand why stupid people like it, either stupid or fantasy star people like Excalibur, but Excalibur's freaking boring. I'm like I hate that movie. It's so boring.
Oh
I
no,
don't get why people like that movie.
you've ended Snack and his Snyder.
Zack Snyder can go get raped by a
Oh
cactus.
no. He can go get raped by a sentient cactus. That way there's intent involved.
Oh no, you just no, we just grab one of those cactuses that's about a foot in diameter and ram it right up his bunghole.
Oh no.
A freaking ass he is a freaking moron. And he keeps getting money for projects even though he sucks.
Indeed. And yeah. And the reason why I bring up how the comparison of The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 isn't very fair because the Jurassic World trilogy seems to have been kind of mimicking aspects of both of those films, quite funnily enough, even though they claim to kind of distance themselves as far as possible in the debut film, Jurassic World.
Even though
Because
the fight between the IRX and the T Rex is basically a redux of the Spinosaurus versus the T-Rex.
I was referring to the well that kind of, but I was mostly focusing on the Giganotosaurus that was being hyped up in Dominion to make it seem like, oh, it could challenge the T-Rex because it killed the T-Rex in the prologue, which is kind of what occurred with Jurassic Park 3. But the thing is, the Giganotosaurus in Dominion is even worse in the, than the Spinosaurus, or it's even less threatening because the Giganotosaurus is just really inactive throughout the entire film, and he doesn't kill a single person. He essentially gets tag teamed by a Therizinosaurus and the Tyrannosaurus Rex near the third act, and he was barely brought up since then. He felt very much like an afterthought. And that's not the only weird connection that the Jurassic World trilogy has with the Jurassic Park sequels, because Fallen Kingdom is kind of like a bad remix of the Lost World Jurassic Park. It has a lot of similar plot points, like transporting dinosaurs off the island for nefarious purposes, and he also has his own like hunter character. It it's even more preachy, extremely more so than the Lost World ever was. So essentially, just uh, hashes like major components of the Lost World and amplifies them to such an extent that it's significantly worse than what it was traditionally trying to avoid, which is really funny because the Jurassic World wanted to distance himself from the reputation of the Lost World and Jurassic Park 3, despite the fact that that trilogy resulted in worse films.
Yeah, Jurassic World is astonishingly bad,
Yeah,
and
it
then it
kind of
gets
reminds me
worse.
of that early phase when Disney bought Lucasfilm and they wanted to distance themselves from the prequels, so they kept on pandering to like the film that started it all, and then eventually, after they realized they kind of ran out of ideas, they started to pander to fans of the um
The prequels
yeah, yeah,
with
started pandering to the
Obi-Wan
fans of the
Kenobi.
prequels, yeah, because they're starting to run out of material.
Yeah,
Or they
doesn't
believed that they were running out of material. That was the issue. They didn't.
yeah, they decanonized a lot of material,
Mhm.
probably in a draconian attempt not to pay royalties.
Yeah, I do not believe the excuse that oh, we didn't want to restrict our writers to such a rigid to rigid stories, but yeah, I don't believe that for a second.
I think it was definitely a rights thing, since there are authors who are like, we're not getting paid royalties by Disney, and I've actually like started suing them.
Mhm.
I can't remember any names off the top of my head. I just know that that has happened. In I don't think in the distant past. Actually, it's been fairly recent.
Mm.
We
Kind
were
of
talking
reminds
on
me of,
like Midnight's Edge
yeah.
or something.
Oh, it kind of reminds me of that one time regular guy decided to sue Amazon, which was kind of based, but at the same time, the foundations behind why he was making this, why he was trying to sue Amazon were just moronic.
Oh, that guy who made his own like Lord of the Rings fan fiction.
Yeah, and believe that Rings of Power stole from him, which like, look, we can all agree that,
That guy was mentally deficient.
yeah,
He's there was something wrong with that man's brain.
yeah,
Like I don't think that he's like cognitively competent enough to I don't know what's a good example. Go to the toilet without somebody helping him.
Oh,
I don't I cannot believe that. I just the fact that he was stupid enough to do that, it just speaks volumes about the fact that he's not like he deserve he's probably got some kind of like major debilitating mental problems
yeah.
that make it so that like dude what, you're not going to win this. There is
Mhm.
no world in which you win this.
Yeah.
And it's just I really just am like why
Hmm.
um why would you do this?
Yeah.
You've
But anyhow, we could talk about how the characters uh shape each other and like how they're developed in each film briefly.
well one thing with Jurassic Park, I think the Jurassic Park has the best characters in all of them because
Yes.
I don't I kind of feel nothing about Sarah and Jeff in the second movie. They're not well, I don't know.
There's some form of chemistry, even though they did
It's
argue
mostly
a
because
lot.
they're
Like
playing
how they
characters.
argued was very charming. You could tell that they had a lot of history together.
I think mainly just because I'm not sure that both of them cared that much about this. I think that this for me at least this feels like it was a the only person that really showed up to work was Pete Postlethwaite
Yeah.
and Jeff Goldblum and Julianne Moore. I don't really feel like this was a passion project. I feel like this was just a paycheck movie. And I think that part of that had to do with the fact that Steven Spielberg was not on set directing this movie for a majority of the filming.
Hmm. I,
Since this was the I think this was one of the if not the first movie that was directed entirely by via Skype.
there were moments where Steven Spielberg did show up on sets. I think the Stegosaurus scene was one of those, but
Well, that's what I said. He was majority of the time because one
yeah,
of his
yeah.
kids was sick, which in totally valid reason to not be um to not be on set. Um but still he's not really able to coax out wasn't I would say he was not able to really coax out performances from his actors in the same way that
Mhm.
he was able to with the original Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I can see that. And with the original Jurassic Park, the screenplay was also written by Michael Crichton as well, compared to this one, where I don't think that was the case. So Michael Crichton knew these characters a lot more. Well, he knew enough about these characters to know, like, okay, what components he can cut out from his novel and adapt to the screen. And you could kind of see that through their performances and but the dialogue that's chosen for each character, and they bounce off quite well. Like we have, Ellie, who's a lot more energetic and optimistic compared to Alan Grant, who's a little bit more reserved and doesn't really care about kids that much. So that's a foundation to create some decent banter off of. And of course, we have the comedic relief character Jeff Goldblum, who's thrown in the wrench. He has a pretty good, even though he doesn't speak much with Alan Grant, the little the bits of small talk that he does have is very entertaining because these are two very different gentlemen.
Yeah, as well as I think, and also Jeff Goldblum is not
He's
just
kind of
funny,
like
he's kind of charming. And
yeah, he's kind of like
admittedly,
a
this is kind of his shtick,
mm-hmm.
really, where he actually has a weird cadence that he brings to every single film that he's in.
Yeah.
And he talks. The only time that I can think of that he was like he kind of seems like really tired, or at least like not in a very good mood during the Lost World. And especially compared to, say, Jurassic Park 1 or Thor 3, or Thor 3,
Mm.
where he's very animated. He's clearly given a lot of material to work with.
Mm-hmm. He's a lot
Um,
more like Jeff Goldblum's Ian Malcolm is much more like uh Jeff Goldblum's character in Thor: Love and Thunder is a lot more reminiscent to Ian Malcolm than Ian
Ragnarok,
Malcolm
you mean?
was in The Lost World, but I don't really view
You
that
mean
as a
Ragnarok?
character inconsistency since he went through some
Oh,
traumatic stuff in this film, so it makes sense why he'll be a bit more reserved. He would be a lot more serious since a lot of the characters in the first film that are usually the ones that are taking the matter more seriously are absent. So he has to take charge in that role, which I kind of like. It kind
uh,
of showed. Hmm.
I I don't see it as a character inconsistency. I just see it as something that's kind of makes it a little bit hard to get into by comparison.
Hmm.
And just the fact that it's and just the fact that you have Mr. Psychopath Vince Vaughn,
Yeah.
who I don't think the movie understands is a psychotic asshole.
Yeah.
Since this was in the day when environmental protesters were not seen as a joke.
Hmm.
Nowadays they are. And because of that, we don't really we see the idea of him valuing animals' lives more than people as psychotic.
Hmm.
And I don't think that was the case back in the late 90s.
Yeah, because this film came out in 97.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't really say that I would take off some points off of this film because of this, because he was characterized as being pretty um
Stupid.
more so just very enamored with his belief of
Well, the character's
being,
consistent. I just don't like him.
yeah,
I just
he does
and
have
I
some.
think that the how the film frames him
Mhm.
is really naive.
Yeah, like he does have charisma, but he's very overconfident and cocky.
I don't
um
know if he has charisma. I think that
a little bit
I
near the
he's not
beginning.
able he's not able to be Vince Vaughn charming like he is in, say, Wedding Crashers,
Mhm.
or some of his other comedy movies, where he just
Mhm.
says like, "Well, good thing Hammond sent somebody, me," and it's just like that's not a good performance, Mr. Vince. I think part of the major problem of why most folks don't like The Lost World is that a lot of the performances are not very engaging, so to speak.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
Julianne Moore is kind of bland, is very bland. Jeff Goldblum, he's clearly mellowed, which does make sense for his character, but it's very hard to get into. Um, and I think that to a certain extent, Jurassic Park 3, it's easier to get into that one. One, it's shorter. Two, um, uh, Alan Grant is a little bit more of a dynamic stream presence and has a lot more range.
Yeah, Sam Neill had a more he seemed like he was trying a bit more in that film, even though it's objectively worse than this one.
Oh yeah, like that film. Oh man, that film is so freaking awful. But
Hmm.
it's also kind of funny and enjoyable in a really stupid way. And you've
Hmm.
and
Yeah, you have even though that it's supposed to be taken as seriously as The Lost World, it fails to do so spectacularly.
it
Like there
also
are,
is not as preachy as The Lost World was trying to be.
it's not, but at the same time, I never
It's
really
still
found
bad.
yeah, I
It's
never really found the preachiness in Lost World to be really annoying. I found it to be really annoying in Fallen Kingdom. Like that was just unbearable.
Yeah, Fallen Kingdom ramps up a lot of the bad elements of Lost World to
Mhm.
a new level. But it's part of it is it could be a lot of that is a preference thing where whenever I see environmentalism preachiness, even if it is tiny, where it is trying to emotionally manipulate me, I immediately get angry
Yeah.
and just really hate that crap. Like I hated and I hate Fern Gully 1. I like Fern Gully 2, even though I understand that Fern Gully 2 sucks, but
Hmm.
it doesn't feel as annoyingly preachy as Fern Gully 1. Same thing for Captain Planet. I freaking hate Captain Planet.
Yeah.
Captain Planet is one of the worst things made by man because it is well, maybe not one of the worst. Is one of the dumbest things made by man
Hmm. Yeah,
because
I thought that there was much malice behind Captain Planet.
yeah, it's one of the most incompetent things because in no kids show are you going to try and have a conversation about AIDS and HIV in a kids show. I'm not kidding. There's an actual episode where they actually
I
they
believe
say the
you.
words or it's HIV you tested HIV positive. You can get it all sorts of ways. You can have a you can get it from unprotected sex, drugs with
Oh,
needles,
well, that's we're teaching them a little early, I think.
or that blood transfusion. These kids are just which is kind of like I think in Planet I think one of my favorite this is probably one of my favorite nostalgia crick episodes because it's actually like really funny.
Hmm.
Um let me actually find it. There's a let's see, where is that part at?
Being a douche. The kids come to help, can't quite handle it, so they call in Captain Planet to save the day. But not all these episodes just focus on the environment. There's actually one or two episodes that handle different subject matters. So, Captain Planet, what other issues are you going to talk to grade school kids about?
AIDS? You tested positive for the HIV virus.
Stop! Cease! Desist! Get out of there!
I love the you're not
Before it's too late!
Sense fear and panic.
All right, so Captain Planet is going to talk about AIDS. God help us. So apparently, Verminous Scum has an evil plan to make high schoolers really hate this one kid who happens to have AIDS. Just listen to his foolproof evil plot.
Once we let people know the kid has AIDS, we can panic the whole town.
See, when people panic, they don't think.
If they don't think, they stay stupid about AIDS and it can spread. And once it spreads far enough,
What?
we take over the earth.
Take over the Earth with AIDS.
Man, we're gonna get AIDS and stuff.
Makes sense to me.
There are only a few ways to contract the virus. Using drugs with needles, unprotected sex, or he could have gotten it from that blood transfusion he had a few years back.
These kids are just learning how to spell blue. Don't tell them about drugs or unprotected sex. What the hell's wrong with you?
Who cares how I got it? It stinks.
There you have it, folks.
You can say that again, I guess.
That man, I'm just like that.
Who cares how I got it? It stinks.
Yeah, and it's just, and then the whole town becomes a lynch mob trying to get this kid because he has AIDS. And then Captain Planet tells this really, really cringy speech where deal with the real people, get the facts, the power is yours.
Wow.
They're getting lectured by this blue guy about AIDS. The human linen stream of lies. It's so man, that's
So, lesson of the day: just because you think someone has AIDS doesn't actually mean they have AIDS.
well, I wish certain people got chronic AIDS. It would be a welcome, well, no, it would be a fitting punishment. I wish Ryan Johnson got AIDS, Rafe
No.
Judkins,
Oh no.
Kathleen Kennedy, who else? J.J. Abrams, the two, Payne and McKay, I wish they got AIDS and syphilis. No, I just hope they all die of herpes.
Yeah, what about the writer of Multiverse of Madness?
Oh yeah, Michael Waldron. No, I just think we
Michael
need to
Waldron.
just cut off his fingers and turn him into a eunuch.
Oh. Dang. You've been thinking about that for a while.
No, that was on the spot.
Oh, impressive.
I'm a sadistic, awful person. I hope you know that.
I am fully aware.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why I need to write Michael Waldron into one of my books. I've done it for Ryan Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy and David Benioff and D.B. Weiss and Michael Bay and Aaron Kruger.
Did you do one for a movie, Bob?
I did, actually. He was a child cannibal who got eaten by a dragon.
That's nice.
Oh, and then School of Movies I've killed twice. Jack Saint I killed once. Yeah, I gave
About Quentin reviews.
I haven't really done Quentin reviews. I probably should at some point. Because I don't have the, I just see Quentin as a pathetic neckbeard.
Yeah.
In a different way than Jack Saint, who I see as like
actively malicious.
An actively malicious turd-headed moron.
Yeah.
Turd-brained moron. Yeah.
Yeah, because when he was reacting to EFAP, he, instead of creating dynamic responses, he just restated what he said in the video that they were responding to, as if that somehow holds any more weight. And that's why EFAP didn't cover his response, because he just covered the same things that they tackled with before.
Yeah, it was pathetic. Yeah, Jack Saint just in all reality is insane. Like him thinking that Sky High is a fascist utopia movie. I'm just like, dude, you're insane.
Yeah. It's really funny that a lot of the people that EFAP covers probably have like master's degrees in English, but they were just brainwashed to view films and media through this nonsensical lens.
Yeah, nonsensical framework. I would agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say one thing that The Lost World and Jurassic Park have that a lot of the other films failed to really accomplish is proper cause and effect. As you could tell from Jurassic Park 3, that's like a foreign concept to that film. The main characters just keep on stumbling upon abandoned facilities or buildings or the Spinosaurus without any rhyme or reason for why. They just so happen to stumble upon these like events through a very small proximity towards one another in the grand scheme of things, since this is a really humongous island.
And especially with the whole finding the Spinosaurus's poop.
Which was, yeah, pretty lucky that he managed to stumble across that. Like, who knows when the Spinosaurus did a number 2. It could have been in the middle of nowhere, it could have been near the ocean, and it could have been anywhere.
And it's just staring at them, like, and it's just looking at them. And it's like, it looks goofy.
Yeah.
It does not look intimidating.
It's like, oh, hello.
It's like, hello, ain't I a stinker?
And
it's just like, Joe Johnson, I like your stuff, but I like Captain America: The First Avenger. I like Jumanji. I don't like this.
Yeah. And how Alan Grant and Eric escape this conflict is by going through a very conveniently placed human-sized hole through the fence.
Yeah. And then...
Because if that wasn't present, then they would have been Spinosaurus food.
Yeah.
Which is why this film is objectively worse. It follows a and then narrative to a T. On top of the fact that there are just so many conveniences that allow these characters to survive far longer than they ever should.
Wait a second.
Which
he also did The Wolfman?
The Wolfman.
Yeah, his last movie was actually in 2011. He has not made a movie... Well,
in 13 years.
Actually, 10 years since he made a film called Not Safe for Work. But I think that movie killed his career or something because he hasn't made anything since. Oh, he made Nutcracker in the Four Realms.
Oh.
That film was bad by all accounts. I refused to watch it, but that was bad. He also did Hidalgo, which I like, and The Page Master, which I like. It's decent.
Yeah. Which is, and the reason why I bring up these issues with Jurassic Park 3 is due to the fact that since The Lost World is fairly, like, conveniences are very scarce in The Lost World because of the fact that it places a lot of emphasis on cause and effect. Like, oh, why did InGen and Hammond's team arrive on the island around the same time? Well, that's because of the inciting incident that occurred in the beginning of the film, with the rich couple experiencing a dinosaur attack by the Compsognathuses. But that was essentially InGen's and John Hammond's natural response to that tragedy. So, and on top of the fact that since a lot of the people that are on this plane on this place have an understanding of the layout of where key locations would be present in, they would of course plan and like eventually trek to those areas of interest, which explains why he managed to find a facility to bring in backup, which is notably absent in Jurassic Park 3. I think a lot of those issues could have been resolved if they just had somebody that's been on the island before. But then again, if that was the case, you had to redraft a lot of other components, which also need redrafting, in all honesty.
And the end sequence, the main problem with Jurassic Park 2 is the fact that the end sequence is really, really awful.
I wouldn't say it's really, really awful. I know the logistics behind how the entire crew on the ship died made no sense, and Ludlow, it also wouldn't make sense for Ludlow to tell Ian where they're keeping the baby T-Rex, since he goes completely against that narrative before he dies. But there are some things that do hold up, like for starters, like it made sense for the T-Rex to follow Ian Malcolm and Sarah specifically because they have the baby T-Rex. On top of
Yeah,
the fact
that's
that I
not
also believe that, on top of the fact that I also believe that the T-Rex would be active because they explained that the tranquilizer that Roland um, shot into the T-Rex was way too powerful, and it was induced into a coma because it was not breathing properly. So they gave it some biotics to counteract those measures, but because they never really experienced something like this before, they didn't know how much to give it, which made it a lot more active a lot earlier on, which I think is the most believable explanation to have a T-Rex be this active, despite the fact that you previously showed us that it was tranquilized. So there are some things that work, but others that don't. So I wouldn't really say it's an unsalvageable mess of a
Hmm.
finale.
Yeah, I would not say that's unsalvageable mess. I'm just like, this was a very bad decision.
Yeah, they should have kept with their original draft, which was to have the third act introduce pteranodons that would take out people with like paragliders, which is probably why Jurassic Park 3 introduced those ideas in its film because it was already laid out in The Lost World, and they decided to utilize that. Mhm. So you could see a little bit of Jurassic Park 2's DNA in Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah, they kind of.
overall, mhm.
Yeah, I feel like with Jurassic Park 3, it was very much a let's just throw Jurassic Park elements into a movie and hope that it makes money.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention this earlier today, but the reason why this film hinges on the and then form of storytelling is because it was being written while it was being filmed. So after um, the filmmakers shot one scene, they didn't really know what scene to shoot next. So they're just coming up with ideas, and since they couldn't backtrack on anything they previously established, they had to kind of roll with the punches and then just create a new scenario that they thought was cool um, to implement in the film, which is why a lot of the set pieces feel kind of meaningless, somewhat. Like the Avery scene didn't really add much because um, uh, Billy's death is counteracted by the fact that they found him alive by the end of the film, so there wasn't much emotional impact, which reduces the emotional impact of the Avery scene.
Yeah, I definitely concur with that one.
And it
Um,
also tried to mimic the extremely well done scene in The Lost World with the trailer, and try to implement their own version with the plane having like these characters be trapped in this fairly large vehicle while a dinosaur is harassing them. But the difference between two is night and day.
yeah, it's significantly worse in three. Three
Hmm.
is three's got major problems, and also three is a weird humor problem. At least I like. They're trying to make certain scenes tense,
Hmm.
but in reality, they just come off as really funny. Like
Yeah.
when the raptors are calling to each other, it just sounds really bad.
Hmm.
Or this one where you see the raptor in the glass, and it's
Yeah.
like that bit, like it's supposed to be tense, but it's really not.
Yeah, it destroys your suspension of disbelief because you know that these raptors were not established to be this intelligent. Yes, they're supposed to be smart, but not to the extent where they would assume that their prey would think that this is another prop in or like another decaying piece of
Technology.
dinosaur mass
Mm-hmm.
inside these embryo chambers.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would never make that logical connection at all.
Yeah, the idea that it would is just completely asinine.
Yeah, at least yeah, and there are some comedic bits that did not land in this film.
Like I think most stuff with like I think another thing that
Like,
T everything with Tia Leone ends up falling very
yeah,
flat.
like
Like
he's
especially the emotional moments.
yeah, like
And
Paul is supposed to be the comic relief character in this film, and he was not funny at all.
yeah.
At least compared to the Lost World, where a lot of the comedic moments did ring true. Um, there were a lot of instances of either like Kelly talking to Ian Malcolm about the babysitter being a troglodyte, or um,
Hmm.
Sarah talking about talking to Ian Malcolm saying, "Oh, I've survived in worse conditions. I've survived in a lot of areas that had carnivores, and predators such as like hyenas, cheetahs, lions, you." Um, so the dialogue is known to be a lot better in the Lost World because it's a bit more creative in how it characterizes a lot of the people in the film, and there's even some visual gags that worked, like when Ian Malcolm was trying to hide in like this small like shelter like facility and trying to evade the Velociraptor, only for it to just slam into like the windows nearby.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think this bit the this is T-Rex P just
Mhm.
raises so many questions.
Yeah, and it didn't have any and it didn't need to be in the film at all. Like I don't even know why they brought up T-Rex P. You think that that was setting up for something later on, but no, that wasn't the case. And I think they were thinking about utilizing this T-Rex P to counteract or distract the Spinosaurus in some way, but that was clearly scrapped.
And it's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it actually makes the film worse because the mere fact that this kid knows that, oh, this attracts a Spinosaurus means that he somehow managed to survive against a Spinosaurus encounter.
Which the weird thing about that whole thing is that um well, the funniest part of that whole thing is just that um apparently this frickin' thing is able to um cause multiple extinction level events to
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the only explanation as to why the Spinosaurus wasn't in the second film was simply because it was on the other side of the island.
Which is really asinine. It's really dumb.
Hmm.
At that point, it's just we didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
It's like, are you freaking kidding me?
Mhm.
And it's just so annoying and frustrating that that whole thing is happening because it's just like It was a very cynical toy attempt. That's
Almost
it.
definitely, yeah.
It was just they wanted to kill the T-Rex off so that, and also to have
They
like
want to have, yeah, they want to have a new excuse to produce more toys because they already experimented with the T-Rex, and now they need a new mascot to play with.
and they wanted to raise the stakes by having the T-Rex die, even
Yeah,
though it just comes off as worse.
yeah. The stakes felt higher in the second film because more people died. Way more people died. In this film, only 4 people died compared to the previous one, where like 20 died.
And it's really frustrating, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm. Like, I will admit to this, at least it's not as bad as Dominion, where no members of this core cast of characters that we're following actually die because half the casts are part of the OG that the writers aren't going to really like touch at all. Like they know that okay, if we kill one of like either like Ian Malcolm or Alan Grant, we're going to experience a lot of fire and pitchforks, so they're off the table to die. And we're obviously not going to kill Chris Pratt's character or um,
Bryce
Claire,
Dallas Howard.
or Claire, or any of the new characters that we made because we like them too much. So the only people that end up dying are regular bystanders or just the main villains.
And it's just has no like weight to it.
Yeah.
Um, uh, there's also one of the things that is interesting about this is they keep having kids in these movies for various reasons. First,
Yeah.
kids are definitely the best, mainly because they're not annoying, and they are able to really endear themselves to us, mainly by the reaction of the adults,
Yeah.
and that's hilarious.
And they also serve a pretty big uh plot point for Alan Grant, their inclusion. Their inclusion ends up changing his worldview, which
Mhm.
also helps justify their existence in the film a bit more.
Mhm. However, then we get to the kid.
Eric,
And
like I thought Eric was
yeah,
fine. It's just absurd that he managed to survive for 8 weeks on an isolated island
yeah.
full of dinosaurs.
Honestly, this film would have been drastically improved if it was just him surviving on the island.
Yeah, that way we would actually have answers as to how he's able to survive. Because I understand that, oh, we're just going to put him inside like this vehicle that has all the conveniences one could possibly need to survive for 8 weeks, and that was a job done, a good job
Yeah,
done in their eyes in the writers' room. But that still raises a lot of issues because nobody in Engine was necessarily expecting to uh like. mm, Like, it would make a bit more sense if it was, like, multiple vehicles, like, he would accumulatively gain more and more supplies, but that's not implied at all, so it's a bit weird that he's able to survive for 8 weeks based off of just, like, 1 truck.
yeah. Um,
On top of the fact that he, uh, like, I imagine he would consistently, like, be outside too, not just, like, huddle around in the safety of, like, the truck, as we saw earlier. which in turn puts him in more instances where he should be in danger and could potentially die from a carnivorous dinosaur.
Yeah. Any other
And I
thoughts?
say his introduction is also a big Deus Ex Machina because Alan Grant and
Is
his
dead to
team
rights.
were and they were just mindlessly walking around like because they would have no inkling of an idea of where Eric would be. Like they found Mrs. Kirby's boyfriend's corpse, which is where Eric could have been, but since 8 weeks have passed, he could still be anywhere. Like, and he just so happened to show up at the perfect time too.
Yeah, and it's really, really freaking stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like this whole movie just it reads as freaking lazy is the main problem with it.
Yeah, it's very lazy writing. Like I never got the sense that in The Lost World was particularly lazy. Like you could tell a decent amount of thought was put into like, why Ian Malcolm is returning to an island full of dinosaurs, why Ingen is also here, why they're going to this facility, and why the T-Rex is following them.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of things that they did set up earlier on, so that way when they were eventually introduced, it doesn't come out of left field like
Mm-hmm.
when Pierre Ludlow, or I think it was like the paleontologists that say that nearby this facility we're heading to, there's also going to be a lot of like velociraptors nearby. So, but don't worry, we're not going to go through that route. We're going to go through a different route to get there.
Mm. Yeah, they set it up well, but
Mm-hmm.
it does seem interesting that the velociraptors in these films go with the buildings.
Yeah, which makes sense. Like I can
Yeah.
definitely believe that that velociraptors um, would live nearby human buildings because it's like not only can they access them, but they can also like use them as shelters from the larger carnivorous dinosaurs. So it makes sense why they would be nearby them,
Mm-hmm.
and also allows the conflicts that these characters are put into to be a little more dynamic than just running away from the T-Rex.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's different, you can pace yourself a bit differently. You can have moments where like you're hiding from the raptors to build a bit more suspense. There are instances where you can easily distract them a bit more, clearly based off of like noise. And there's also uh, a bit more of a utilization of the environment to deter these raptors than with the T-Rex, because there isn't really much else you can deter a T-Rex with.
Yeah. Any other things? I have to run really quick to the bathroom, but I'm just wondering if there's any other because I can't really think of much to discuss about these films that we haven't discussed already.
Yeah, like we could bring up the differences between this and the books, but we already kind of did that in the commentaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since a lot of it's way more of a horror novel in the books as opposed to
Yeah,
the film. The film is very much kiddie humor or kiddie horror. Sorry, by comparison to the book, where Michael Crichton was like, "Let's go as dark as possible with this, including
yeah.
the napalming of Site One."
Mm-hmm. Or
And
Site A.
or Site A, yeah.
Yeah, and a
And
fun fact, near the beginning of the novel, uh, actually includes like this rich couple who had their offspring. Uh, I think it was the first chapter of that novel too, of like this girl like describing what a Compsognathus is and assuming it was like a weird like lizard, which puts the reader a bit on edge because it's clearly not a regular lizard; it's a dinosaur. They know what they're getting themselves into. So seeing the girl describe it as a lizard builds tension because it's going to be a lot more harmful than she thinks it is.
mhm.
And I like how the Lost World actually utilizes that plot point that was in the first book into the inciting incident of this film. So I thought that was pretty neat.
That is pretty neat. 1 second, I need to go to the bathroom. I will be right back.
Okay. So, how have you guys been? Hope things have been going well. I got to go to college pretty soon, so I'll have that to look forward to. Yeah, just another 6 months, and I'll finally get my CTN diploma. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. Here, nobody's currently watching, unfortunately, but I guess it's mostly because this discussion was a bit out of the blue. We would probably gain a bit more views if it came out around Jurassic World 4, when Jurassic World 4 will come out in next year, but I'm impatient and done had the week off, so it gave him time to watch the trilogy. That's just something that was kind of on my mind. A lot of it mostly stemmed from the fact that I do really like The Lost World, and it holds up a lot better than Jurassic Park 3, which a lot of people believe they're one of the same in terms of quality, which is something I fervently disagree with. I think it holds up a lot better than Jurassic Park 3 in many ways that I mentioned before, and we'll soon mention when Done arrives. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I have not had a full 8 hours of sleep last night. Mostly because I was binging EFAP's 300th episode anniversary. Been running for 6 years. So, yeah, the live stream occurred for 24 hours, but it was split into 3 separate ones because the maximum amount of time you can allot to a stream is 12 hours. So, yeah. I should have eaten something before coming here, but man, it's fine. It is fine.
Oh, sorry. I just got back. I apologize.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. You haven't eaten.
oh, no worries. I can still go for an extra like 30 minutes. It's fine.
I don't really think that there's much else to discuss, though. At least I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I can. So what was like the most surprising component of like the Lost World? Because after watching it, you said that it was actually a bit better than you thought it was going to be.
I would say that it's at least got some funny moments.
Mm-hmm.
The
Generally funny moments.
Yeah, and there's a certain amount of cause and effect.
Yeah.
It isn't great.
Yeah, I'd say the worst component of that is when Sarah, for some reason, still left the blood of a baby T-Rex on her clothing when she should have known better to just wash it off.
Yeah,
Especially since she even stated that the Tyrannosaurus Rex's olfactory senses are greatly heightened, which is why, even though they were a few miles away from the T-Rexes, it was still able to track them down because they had the injured baby T-Rex with them. So at least that part makes sense, but this part doesn't. But thankfully, everything that this event causes does make sense because it provides a reason why all the hunters went to a route that they previously would have avoided because it has raptors in it. And that in turn allowed the raptors to be distracted from our main protagonists, which allowed them to have safe entry to the facility. So it does impact the plots. That's another thing that Jurassic Park 3 was missing compared to The Lost World is a lot of its action set pieces actually influence the plots. With the dinosaurs, the herbivore dinosaurs destroying all the things that, all the hunter equipment put them in a vulnerable position to try to rely on the older technology that was left on engine and left by engine, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex is having a lot of influence over the destruction of the trailer. Also put Ian Malcolm and his team in a vulnerable position, which in turn forced these otherwise enemies into not necessarily form like a friendship or bond, mostly just due to kind of like a non
balance of convenience.
yeah, more so like kind of like a um non-aggression pact in a way. Because we're both in the same situation here, and if we start fighting amongst ourselves, then that's just going to deter both of our efforts. So it's within everybody's interest to depend on each other a bit more, which I think is really interesting because these are supposed to be the bad guys, but yet they still feel like characters. They don't feel like cartoon villains like in the Jurassic World films.
Yeah, the Jurassic. The main thing that this film benefits from is rule of contrast. At least I
Yeah,
think it does, because the Jurassic World movies are really, really awful.
yeah.
Admittedly,
Like
though,
mhm.
the moment where the T-Rex fights the I-Rex and the Raptor comes in is pretty stinking awesome.
It
It's
is awesome,
utterly
but it's also
stupid.
dumb. It's
It
also
is
very yeah.
It is so stupid, but it's so awesome. Kind of in a
Mhm,
way that the Transformers movies can never manage, where I don't understand why people think that they are big, dumb fun. They
mhm.
are mostly stupid anti-comedies.
Probably because we gained a little bit of, an emotional connection with Blue because I did like Blue in Jurassic World, but they somehow they managed to ruin his character a bit in the her character in the consecutive sequels, where she just became a big plot device that survives absurd circumstances and able to do it. It was able to do absurd things, especially in Fallen Kingdom.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of the reason why that had a bit more of an emotional payoff was because of the fact that at least we had some kind of a connection with Blue compared to the Transformers films, where you don't really have a connection between the Autocons or
The Autobots or
well, to that.
Decepticons.
Yeah, we don't really have a big connection between either, because everybody's just really an asshole and incompetent.
Yeah, or they're the result of bad jokes.
Yeah. Like, everyone was in that film was more so just annoying, which is why a lot of people didn't really care that much, like, oh, who will win in the end.
Yeah, the only person they liked was Optimus Prime, and then he got ruined in the third one.
Yeah, where he committed all the war crimes
Yeah.
and became an
Yeah.
edgelord.
We will kill them all. That's not Optimus Prime. That's Optimus Prime.
He's about to commit genocide.
Yeah. It's just kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
That there are good Transformers media. Like, Transformers Prime is the best Transformers has ever been or ever going to be, really. G1, yeah, it's mainly just typical stupid kids crap.
Mm-hmm.
Same with stuff like Thundercat, the original Thundercats. I'm still pissed that they canceled 2011. Since that was actually a good show. Oh, it's some good stuff in it, but then they decided to cancel it because of frickin' Lego deal. I kid you not, that's why it got canceled.
Yeah.
Is because of a deal with Lego.
Well then, I did not know of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, at least you can understand why I appreciate The Lost World a lot more than, like, Jurassic Park 3. And even though objectively it's like a 6 out of 10 kind of film, subjectively it's like an 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 for me. Like, there's a lot of nostalgic bias I have going in, but I am who I am, so I'm going to analyze things objectively to the best of my capabilities. And I'd say I did all right, despite me having a very overt bias towards this film. Like, I really like it a lot more than most people, and I can understand why. But at least there's enough meat on the plate to chew on, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't think that The Lost World is
Like, I wouldn't say it's a bad movie.
awful. There are a number of character weaknesses that make it a lot less engaging than the first one.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of funny that Michael Crichton wrote the book and he wrote a very good sequel, and they ended up using mostly none of it.
Yeah, because Dawson was actually the main antagonist in the second book, but instead that role was put in the shoes of John Hammond's nephew.
Yeah, it was kind of lame.
He's all right for most of the film. Like, I didn't find him annoying or just cringy like in like a lot of the antagonists are in Jurassic World. He's just he does his job well.
He is at least not as bad as any of the Fallout boardroom people.
Yeah,
that just watching Mahler's review of that scene just pissed me off.
Oh yeah, we're gonna kill everybody in the name of capitalism.
It's like that's not how it works.
We're gonna make our own lives worse for the sake of capitalism. For ending the war.
Yeah.
And he does give a good point in saying why he's kind of like treating these dinosaurs differently from like other animals. Like he's not saying like, oh, animals are beneath us. Rather, he says that like, oh, these dinosaurs are at the end of the day Indian property. We patented it. This is not like some natural phenomenon that occurred. This is something that is purely a byproduct of our engineers.
Yeah, we designed, we grew these in a lab. These are not natural animals.
Yeah, and because of the lawsuits, Engine needed to like recuperate their funds and might as well utilize the assets that they already have and put them in a more secure like location near the mainland. So I can definitely see that from a business perspective, because in his eyes, he's essentially just allowing these assets to rot.
Yeah.
So there's a bit more to his claim than just, oh, I don't like animals. Animals are dumb.
Which they kind of are, but kind of.
Hmm. Yeah. So there's a little bit more to him that you don't really see in villains like him that are a bit greedy. And he's also fairly tame throughout the film too. He doesn't really say anything that's pretty annoying. He does have a contradiction in his character near the end, but eh. There's only one thing throughout this film. Overall, I still say he's a decent character. He fills his function quite well.
Yeah, he is not as awful as most other generic businessman antagonists.
Yeah, like he doesn't say anything outlandishly dumb. He's a very composed individual. He could definitely see someone like him at the head of Engine. He doesn't seem like incompetent.
No, and then he gets eaten by the T-Rex.
Yeah, I do like how I think it was like the bull T-Rex that injured him and then allowed his son to take him out.
Yeah, he was like, "You eat that little sucker."
Yeah, that's something that's very believable, like animalistic behavior. And it also characterizes him a bit. He even pushes him for him.
He's like, "Go get that little, go eat him." Yeah, it's at least believable as opposed to the Indoraptor grinning at the screen
Yeah.
like it's a cartoon. You know, you stinky.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Oh yeah. Overall, Lost World a lot better than a lot of the other Jurassic Park sequels, which alone isn't saying much, but it still has a decent amount, of content that can stand on its own. Like I say, most of the plot is still relatively like, intact.
Yeah, it is functional.
Yeah.
There's nothing exemplary about it,
No.
but it's not stupid like 3 is or
Mhm.
brain dead like the Jurassic World sequels.
Yeah. Well, I
Ultimately.
will say the trailer scene was the closest thing to exemplary
Mhm.
because the cinematography and choreography associated with that scene and the tension that it builds is just not only is it so unique, but it's so gripping at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I concur with that. It's a definitely good moment.
Hmm.
It has moments that raise it up from being completely forgettable.
Yeah.
Like it's a functional product.
Hmm.
There's there's one great scene,
Mhm.
and then
Oh.
the rest of the movie's kind of eh.
To an extent, but I still thoroughly enjoyed the film from beginning to end.
Yeah, I can enjoy it, but it's not a movie that I will want to watch ever again, really.
Hmm.
And
That's
I'm
understandable. But there are definitely far worse ways to spend 2 hours than The Lost World.
yeah, we're about to spend 8 hours in Hannah McKay's Clown World, and next week, I believe, which is going to be great.
Oh no. I'm actually going to return to college around that time too, so that'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so overall, would you agree that this film, well, actually, how about before we end things, we could just rank the 3 films?
Obviously, it's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, but give them numbers based off of their objective quality.
I would say 8.5 to 9 for the 8.5, since the geography is often at a couple of important points is made weird.
Or near the end where the TOS comes in as a Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah. I would give The Lost World a 5.
I give it a 6.
Yeah. And I give 3 I give it a 4, since it is not functional, but the problem is my gauge for what is bad has been adjusted so that I can't give it a 3 like I would the Transformers a 3 or a 2 like the Transformers movies, since Transformers 1 is a 3. This isn't.
That's a hot take. I haven't seen any of the films, but I know a lot of people, even though they hated a lot of the other Transformers films, they still said that Transformers 1 was at least good.
They're stupid if they think that. Like, I watched it with White, and he was like, I can't believe I thought this was good. And I didn't need to do much commenting. It's just like, you don't remember stuff like his parents talking about his masturbation habits and calling it Sam's happy time. And I kid you not, that's a scene in the movie. And it's filled with juvenile crap like that. That's not funny.
Was that the one that had the dogs humping, or is that the second one?
That's the second one, yeah. People forget that the first one is filled with awful anti-humor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a stupid movie. And Shia LaBeouf is a terrible main lead. Like he is so bad in that movie. No, Transformers 1 is a 3. It is non-functional. Like the whole stuff.
Would you say it's still the best of the live-action Transformers films, despite it being a 3?
Oh yeah, it's definitely the best of them. It's still a 3. That's because the others are 2s and 1s. For instance, number 2 is a 2. Number 3 is also a 2. Number 4 is a 2. Number 5 is a 1. Just because of how much damage it does to the timeline.
Was Anthony Hopkins in the 5th one?
Yep.
A lot of people said he was the only good character in that film, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, you get to hear him say, "What a bitchin' ride."
That's a little cringy.
Oh yeah, the thing with these movies is they are entirely made of cringe because Michael Bay just says, I don't care. I'm just here to make money. And somehow he does. Even though people hated the second one a lot, they came back for the third movie and made it one of the highest grossing films of all time.
I think it was mostly a vocal minority. A lot of people still hated the second film, but I think the average audience members just viewed it as mindless entertainment. They didn't really have a strong feeling for or against that movie. It was basically what they expected, and that's why so many people came back to watch the third film because they just knew what to expect. It was like their comfort food.
Oh man. At least they stopped watching at 5. 5 was a massive financial disappointment.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that was one with like King Arthur and all that
I think
nonsense. And like
one
how every single historical event in humanity was somehow influenced by the Transformers.
the one thing that that actually I think that the reasons why these actually had rapidly diminishing returns in America,
Mm-hmm.
but it had a lot of success overseas, especially in Japan, I believe it was.
China
and Japan. Or maybe it was
I
just
think
China.
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of I think there's a lot of content in China that gears towards like big like robot fights
Mm,
because that's kind of akin to even though like kaiju fights are more of a Japanese thing, I think with China there's still a lot of content that people watch that place emphasis on like robots fighting.
hmm
So them watching an American film with an extremely high budget was a pretty interesting spectacle for them.
Yeah. It's just depressing.
Hmm.
It's that those movies are really bad. They are at least as bad as the sequels, as the Star Wars sequels.
And a lot of and pretty much most of MCU Phase 4 and 5.
I would say that the MCU 4 and 5, kind of the exception of Deadpool and Wolverine, which is like a 6, like 6 or 7 from an enjoyment perspective. But it's got major plot problems and
Mhm.
character problems. And it just kind of ends up being a really stupid movie. It's a stupid movie that's got some entertaining bits in it, as opposed to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which is just a stupid movie.
Yeah.
And Thor: Love and Thunder, which is a stupid, annoying movie.
There's also Quantum Mania.
Yeah, that's also a stupid, annoying movie.
Mhm. Would you say that the Transformers films are around like in the same ballpark in terms of quality with the DCEU?
Actually, yes,
Mm.
because the horrible world building in Man of Steel is on par with the bollocks world building in Revenge of the Fallen,
Mm. Wow.
and the and then and the horrible humor throughout Transformers 2
Mhm.
is just a barrage of awful. And
That's fair enough.
and like you have things like the diner where Simmons is running this diner and he's got this black guy with these horrible teeth, like buck teeth,
Mhm.
and he brings them downstairs and like he's like, do not this is top secret, do not tell my mother. This guy was terrible in the first movie when he got urinated on by Bumblebee, but
Then he became like a gooner.
It's just so awful. Like there's nothing redeeming about the Transformers movie. Even the action is a horrible, crappy mess.
Yeah, I've seen clips of the action and it was just really hard to follow. They're just so busy. It's very difficult for the cinematography to carefully guide the eye because it's just really, really busy, like I said.
Yeah.
And I also heard that Michael Bay uses a lot of shaky cam, which makes it infinitely worse. And the editing is just like the pouring salt in the wound.
Yeah. I'm kind of sad that Replica Films is too much of a coward to debate me on.
Mhm.
Apparently, I've traumatized him so bad through facts and logic that he will never ever talk to me.
Yeah, he banned you, well, blocked you,
Yeah,
and left Noble's server. Like, it was funny. He didn't leave Noble's server because of Noble. He left it because of you.
which is freaking hilarious. Freaking ballless coward.
Yeah. Yuri occasionally steps in Noble's server and, he gets memed on, which is really funny. I sent you a recent interaction that they had together.
Oh yeah, the fact that he's the find remote work. If you just considered OnlyFans, that's freaking hilarious.
Not with any seriousness, implying that he did consider it, but mostly just for a meme.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think back to the Jurassic Park trilogy. I think the reason why I put Jurassic Park The Lost World as a 6 out of 10, and Jurassic Park 3 is more so like around like a 3.5 out of 10 is because at least The Lost World has a few decent characters. Like Roland is actually my personal favorite character in the entire series. He's
Mhm.
not some run-of-the-mill hunter who kills because he, again, like, has some
He
weird
wants a
superiority
challenge.
complex. Rather, he kills because he wants to endure the most, well, he wants to aspire to be, well, he wants to accomplish challenges most men would never really face in their lifetimes. He wants
Mhm.
to essentially become like, almost kind of like a legend in the sense of why
Mhm.
he hunts. And I think his speech towards Vince Vaughn regarding Mount Everest, the guy who climbed Mount Everest, was a brilliant character moment for him. It just explained like why he's he's doing this, even though it's so dangerous.
Mhm. R.I.P. Pete Postlethwaite.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
Yeah. Well, I think he's dead.
Hmm. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Since I remember, yeah, he died 13 years ago.
Wow.
I mean, he's been gone a while.
Yeah, ever since back in like 2011.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think for him alone adds an additional point to this film, which is why it's a
Mhm.
6 out of 10 for me.
That's fair. Yeah.
Because there only being like 1 point between Jurassic Park 2 and Jurassic Park 3 seems a little off because we're counting like conveniences and um, illogical decision making that doesn't make sense for the characters. Like every like 5 minutes of that film.
Mhm. Yeah. It also doesn't hurt that Leone is, well, I don't know. Who do you think is worse, her or Willie Scott? I find her more annoying than
I,
Willie Scott.
I think she's more annoying.
Yeah. Because at least Willie Scott has some measure of humor about her. Tia Leone just seems like she is completely bored or she is screeching into a microphone.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
and I also found her character really annoying because after she was rightfully being judged for screaming all the time and still didn't care about the fact that she was being judged for screaming, she then tells Paul to not scream when they went to the research facility. Like, oh yeah, like as if you have any kind of position to prevent other to say that like, oh, that's a bad idea when you know that it's a bad idea, but you're still doing it.
Yeah.
She just comes off as really entitled. She just comes off as really entitled.
Also, the reaction she has to finding her boyfriend is at first like super annoying and frustrating, and then like she goes to under the bottom reserved, and when she's talking to him about her kid, and it's just like,
Yeah, I don't understand why she suddenly became reserved because she was still as whiny even after experiencing a pretty dramatic event with the Spinosaurus earlier. I'm glad she was a bit more reserved, but I don't think that would be in character for her.
No, she seems like she is very much playing a shrill scream queen.
And
yeah.
But yeah, and at least in the Lost World, in Malcolm, besides him saying like, "Oh, of course it's safe in the trailer," you know, there's a baby T-Rex here. He's fairly competent and fairly consistent to what we know in Jurassic Park. Well, at least like a decent development of who he would be after experiencing those events in Jurassic Park. He doesn't really do anything that's illogical, and he's pretty much like the most competent character in whatever scene he's in. And compare that to Alan Grant, where like, yeah, he is the most competent, but at the same time, that first act really did a lot of damage to his character.
Yeah.
Which is damage that Ian Malcolm did not face in this film.
No. Yeah, he definitely, by comparison, he did not suffer the damage that Alan Grant does, where Alan Grant is definitely a moron, a complete moron in Jurassic Park 3, where he's like, I can write all kinds of numbers, and he just buys it without any further investigation.
Yeah, on top of the fact that he shouldn't even be in this financial situation at all because of the lawsuit he would have won against InGen. On top of the fact that John Hammond would have been paying for any kind of like expedition sites that he would have demanded because one, he would feel guilty about having Alan go through the events that unfolded in the first Jurassic Park film. On top of the fact that he also saved his grandchildren, so he would. There are a lot of factors as to why he would want to personally fund Alan Grant, since he himself is quite wealthy.
Yeah, he's freaking loaded.
So he wouldn't even be in this position to have any kind of leverage, to be leveraged over in any regard at all. And I also really didn't care much for Billy at all. Like I don't think you can say that certain characters in the Lost World were bland, but I don't think anybody was as bland as Billy, because there really wasn't much to him literally at all. Like some of the hunters in the Lost World have more personality than he did. Like
yeah, I would concur with that. He
just kind of like blatantly states things that are obvious, and the fact that he called out on Paul's BS about hiking like this one mountain when he should have questioned him that as soon as he brought it up in this dinner scene. Why did you wait so long? If you were suspicious of this.
Yeah.
Also, I don't really know why Paul would be. I guess it's a bit of a nitpick, but it's a bit odd that Paul would be um, have some form of like an inaccuracy in terms of like the lie he's telling, because you imagine he would do some research behind it.
Yeah.
But then again, he was established to be an idiot, so
Yeah, and also it's just Google existed during this time.
So yeah, I
So
think
the
the love,
idea,
like the main and since these problems occur in the first act, that means like the foundation of this film is dramatically worse than in The Lost World, which is why I'd say like give it like a 2 point separation would be fair between the two, or at least how I separated them. Like objectively, this is like a 3.5 out of 10, and this is in compared to Lost World was more like a 6 out of 10, so just 2.5 points ahead of it. I think is a fair distance.
yeah,
Because even though it's like 30 minutes shorter, it arguably has more issues. Well, it definitely does have more issues despite its shorter runtime. It has less redeeming qualities. Significantly less. But yeah, that's how I'm viewing things.
yeah, I would concur. It's definitely one of those moments where it's just like, this movie.
Like
It
this
is-
discussion is actually longer than the film is.
Yeah, we beat the film, yeah, by about 5 minutes.
4 minutes.
Yeah. And I guess if you don't really count credits, it's only like an hour and 24 minutes.
Wow.
It's it's very much a B movie.
Yeah, it is. I will give Jurassic Park 3 this. At least it's gracefully short. None of the
Yeah.
Jurassic World films were short. They're either 2 hours or 2.5 hours.
Yeah. They have more stuff to suffer through.
Yeah. But yeah, this was fun overall. I don't think it would have been fun if we watched the Jurassic World films though.
There's an element of
I can see myself kind of enjoying Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom because even though those films are bad, there are some fun qualities to it. Like the cinematography in Fallen Kingdom is actually really good. So at least there's something that so at least there's something to appreciate, but Dominion is just a slog.
yeah. Yeah, I don't yeah, I have not yeah, I refuse to watch Dominion. I was
That's
just
completely
like, I ain't
fair.
watching it. I ain't watching this crap.
Yeah, and because of what current Dominion, I highly doubt that Jurassic World 4 is going to be remotely comparable in terms of its quality, especially since everything I've heard about Jurassic World 4 has been good. There haven't been any red flags, and even though I doubt it's going to be a good film, at least it's I'm looking for something that's of the quality of like The Lost World. Like
Yeah.
that's all I'm really expecting.
Yeah, where it's not insulting.
Yeah, it's not brain dead.
Yeah. I can
Yeah, there are issues, the very apparent issues within. There probably will be pretty apparent issues in that film, but at least if there's a decent amount of character work and redeeming qualities, then you can still enjoy
somewhat enjoy
yourself.
it.
Yeah,
It won't be insanely annoying.
without it you feeling like you're being like lobotomized by watching it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So overall, what would be your favorite character throughout the Jurassic Park trilogy before we end things off?
I would say that it would be Alan Grant.
Fair enough.
Because Alan Grant is very much a like just very much like I have a very big soft spot in my heart for curmudgeonly assholes like him.
That's fair. I really love Alan in Jurassic Park too. Yeah, his character arc was also really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I like. I kind of like Ellie. Ellie's fine.
Mhm.
I think what happens with Jurassic Park 3 is so annoying. But
Yeah.
still like Alan Grant. Ian
Mhm.
Malcolm's kind of cool. Ian Malcolm's fun in the first movie. I like him less in the second movie.
Yeah, but like I think performance does have a lot to do with how the character is portrayed, but I do understand why Ian would have a more reserved demeanor. And in all honesty, I kind of prefer that as opposed to the kind of characters that Jeff Goldblum plays nowadays, where they're a bit too ecstatic.
What do you mean erratic?
Yeah, erratic. Yeah, my bad, erratic.
Yeah, since
Or
ecstatic is a very different definition.
yeah. I was looking for the word erratic, but ecstatic came out. My bad.
You're
Again, I
fine.
haven't I haven't had like a full like 8 hours of sleep.
Hey, go to sleep.
I know.
All right, we will
Look,
call it good for
I've had I have somewhat of an excuse because I was binging the EFAP 300th episode live stream and the boogie content. I just couldn't stay away from it.
boogie content. Yeah,
Yeah, the boogie 2988.
yeah, I
The
don't get that. I'm just like I tried watching it, but I was like, this is not that interesting. Hey, I
yeah.
need to actually dive into it.
Yeah, that's fair. Um I personally view him as just really entertaining because he's an overt narcissist who tries to make everyone believe in his lies, but he's really incompetent. So everything just falls back. So everything he does just ends up coming back in his face in so many unexpected ways.
Yeah, he just keeps on failing.
Yeah, he is the visual definition of a lolcow. And I think what makes him a lot more compelling than a lot of other lolcows like Chris Chan, who's just generally insane, is because at least he's like cognitive enough to realize that like the things he's saying obviously aren't true, but he wants other people to think that they're true. And how he navigates that is a lot more entertaining than just someone spouting off nonsense.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's not as
It's a bit more intellectually engaging, especially when you have a lot of people that just call out his lies, and you even get to learn a bit about like be a bit more mindful about how people convey things that they are forcing you to like understand. And it's very key signs of a big manipulator, especially since he plays the victim in every circumstance that's given to him, and a lot of people are like that. So it's a bit more intellectually stimulating than like Chris Chan.
mm, that does make sense. I haven't really done any of the Christian stuff. I know that he's like an incest weirdo.
Yeah.
By all accounts, that's my main understanding of that particular piece of human garbage.
Yeah, fair. But anyhow, I'm glad we took the time to dissect the Jurassic Park trilogy. It was fun.
Indeed, it's it's a neat bit of um, film history that is very much going to be mostly erased, I think.
Yeah, like these films were made at a time where uh you definitely wouldn't get films like these made in the modern era at all. And so these are kind of like period pieces in an earlier age of filmmaking. So just kind of neat to see that. And there's also a large nostalgic component to the trilogy. And yes, even though I don't really like Jurassic Park 3, I'm still a little nostalgic for it.
Yeah, it's one of those where, oh, this used to be the standard for bad. Now
Yeah.
it's not, and it's weird. It
Yeah,
is.
like if The Lost World came out like in the past like 5 years, then it would probably be in like at least the top 10 best films of any one of those years. It will be in the 10th place, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with you. It's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Weird. And it's just neat to kind of see where we've come.
Mm-hmm. And how much our standards have been, unfortunately, eroded.
Yeah, where we just like have to say, okay, so this is what a bad movie looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
And
I'm very grateful for people like Mahler that, and people like him that are creating like a very aggressive reaction towards this new um, sense of like media where objectivity and a lot of writers don't really believe in objectivity in their writing. All they care about is just conveying their message, and you can clearly see that through their work.
man, but it's so awful. That's the
Mm-hmm.
problem. It's so frustrating.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this was fun though. We may even though I don't want to watch Dominion again, but before Jurassic World 4 comes out, if enough people are willing to endure the Jurassic World films with us, we might as well do that.
Yeah, that film, man, that film was so freaking awful.
Yeah. Even though strategically, I think I should have told you about doing the Jurassic Park trilogy a bit closer to the release date of Jurassic World 4. That way we would probably get a bit more people to engage. I was a little impatient and saw an opportunity and seized it because I was really keen to know what your thoughts were overall about the Jurassic Park trilogy.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those films where you just watch it and it's like, really, this is the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And but we'll probably have to call that good for today. So
Yeah. Wait.
You're live?
Wait. Yeah. Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay.
Well, we'll call it good for today, folks. See you later.
Have a good night.